Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to see you all. I'm the head of an intergovernmental organization called IRENA, which was created by governments to support the transition to a sustainable energy economy of the future. We're 6 years old, but one of the fastest growing agencies in the international system because the topic is so compelling. But I remember when I started 6 years ago, if I went to a utilities event, there wouldn't even be half the people that we have in this room talking about the energy transition. And here we are, I understand 12,000 people are participating, and that's only the beginning of this process, because this is becoming such a topic of systemic importance. And let me also thank the organizers and the Dutch government for the very kind invitation to be here. It's my first time, and I'm really pleased to be in Europe because we have the utilities which are really pioneering change in smart energy transition, in the energy transition that we're seeing. They've done a lot of heavy lifting. They've taken the shots that came with this in the early part, but the transition that we're seeing is truly an event in the European setting which is driving change worldwide. And these are really exciting times in the world of energy. They're characterized both by immense challenges on the one hand, the evolution of business models, changing to different realities, new technologies, but also immense opportunities, because these are driving also growth and transformation and a new phase of economic growth and development that is taking us to a sustainable future in a carbon-constrained world. In this setting, renewables and the rise of the prosumer, the digital revolution, alongside new technologies and services, are transforming the business of supplying and delivering energy. A more responsive, smart, decentralized, and interconnected energy system is now emerging. And this changing energy landscape offers new opportunities for bold leadership and action. And in this, utilities will play a key role in ushering in this new era. And Europe, which has historically been at the forefront of renewable development and has pioneered many of these changes that are changing the world before us, has a special role to play in this. European countries have also embarked on an ambition emissions cut package, at least 40% by 2030, and also on their clean energy package, through which Europe will continue to assert its leadership in boosting renewables, energy efficiency and economic growth, and contributing to a sustainable future for us all. At the same time, the transition to a sustainable energy future is well underway, not only in Europe, but all over the world, with renewables at its core. And last year, global investment in renewable energy reached almost $300 billion, while renewable power generation capacity increased by a record of 161 gigawatts. So even when we are seeing the financial level of investment slightly lower than the year before, capacity is at a record, which is associated with price decreases in technology. And the unprecedented scale-up that we're seeing of renewables is driven by declining costs, technological innovation, and enabling policy frameworks. Solar and wind projects are now offered for $3 a kilowatt hour and even less in different locations around the world. Everywhere we see these signs of change. A few weeks ago, we heard that the first offshore wind auction in the UK was delivering prices that were half the cost of electricity from the projected Hinkley C nuclear power plant. And in Dubai, neighboring city to ours in Abu Dhabi, a recent auction has delivered concentrated solar power at just over 7 cents a kilowatt hour coming from CSP, which provides base load from solar at 24 hours. Remarkable changes that we're seeing. Last April, Germany, for instance, announced that it had accepted the first subsidy-free offshore wind auction bid with a record low weighted average of $4.67 a megawatt hour, which is less than a tenth of the previous offshore wind deal. Impressive cost reductions for renewables are expected to continue. IRENA research, which samples utility-scale investments around the world every year, projects that the cost for solar PV could drop by a further 60%, offshore wind by 35%, and concentrated solar power by almost 45% over the next decade. So we are not at the end of the price declines that we have been seeing. So these remarkable advances in less than a decade have happened much faster than anyone expected. I was just speaking to Manon a little earlier, and 6 years ago, when we were talking to her colleagues in Ecofix about the future, nobody could have anticipated in 6 years' time we'd be having this meeting talking about these issues in the way that we are. So, on a sunny and breezy day in Germany last May, wind, solar, biomass, and hydro provided a record of 85% of the country's total energy on that day. This is one of the major industrialized countries in the world. And we just learned that nearly a third of all UK's electricity came from renewables in the second 3 months of this year, setting a new record for clean energy generation. And more is yet to come. The global drive to implement the Paris Agreement is providing further impetus for renewable energy deployment worldwide. I was looking at some of the news reports recently where some of the big fund managers in the world, BlackRock and the like, managing billions and billions of dollars of assets, are now asking energy companies in which they're investing for full climate disclosure and accounting for potential stranded assets. This is changing the business model from all sides of the equation, from finance, from technology, from cost, and so on. Earlier this year, with all the discussion on climate issues, we launched a study in collaboration with the International Energy Agency at the request of the chairmanship of the G20 countries on decarbonization of the energy sector in line with the well below 2 degrees centigrade target of the Paris Agreement. The report, Perspectives on the Energy Transition, finds that we need to raise the share of renewables in the primary energy supply to 65% by 2050, up from 15% today. That's a big lift. But by 2050, renewables and energy efficiency could potentially, under this scenario, meet 90% of emission reductions. Important investments would, however, be needed, but these investments would be outweighed by the macroeconomic benefits of the energy transition. We are projecting that in line with this scenario, GDP growth would be boosted around 0.8% by 2050 worldwide, and renewable energy employment that would grow as a result of this transformation, and we're already seeing that, would reach 26 million. So those political leaders who are looking for areas for growth, infrastructure investment and employment, this is a prime issue for decision-making for the future. So this new energy reality is reshaping the way energy is produced, distributed, and consumed around the world. With growing renewables generation at both the large-scale and small-scale distributed level, the so-called Energy 3D, and we're going to hear a little bit about that later, decarbonization, decentralization, and digitalization, this is altering the entire paradigm of the power sector that we have been used to for the last decades. Three million energy users in Europe, facilitated by renewable energy power technologies, are now estimated to be generating at least some of their own power. Enel, who is represented here today, has brought over 30 million smart meter points across Italy, covering close to 100% of Italian households. In Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark, smart meter penetrations are also nearing these levels. And then the China state grid has now deployed 350 million smart meters, demonstrating a remarkable transition in the world's biggest energy market. I visited the China State Grid headquarters, and I innocently asked the question, well, what are you doing about smart grid? And he said, oh, we have a few meters out there. When I said how many, he told me it was 350 million. In China, that's a few. So these developments are at the heart of IRENA's work on the power sector transformation. Along with leaders from the utility industry, we're looking at innovative efforts and priority action areas for achieving a zero-carbon grid by the middle of this century. Not only as a sound business strategy, but as a necessity for ensuring a sustainable future for all of us. It's no secret that the power sector transformation creates challenges for utilities. On the one hand, consumers may produce their own electricity, but on the other hand, new demand is emerging from the electrification of end-use sectors through electric vehicles. We've seen the remarkable announcements in recent weeks from the UK, from France, from China, from India about aggressive movement into electric vehicles, on electric boilers, heat pumps, and other applications. Higher shares of variable renewable penetration in the grid and increasing bidirectional flows of electricity require a more flexible power system. Distributed energy resources are decentralizing our electricity networks and moving them away from the traditional baseload generation concepts and operating practices. In Germany, for example, more than 95% of all renewables generators are connected to the distribution grid. 35% of renewable installations are owned by citizens, and the aggregated share in total distributed generation capacity by the 4 big incumbent utilities is only 5%. Therefore, the relation between distribution system operators, transmission system operators, and consumers is evolving as new roles require more data exchange and coordination, and that is one of the themes of this meeting, is looking at the advent of big data and how we manage all of this information. At the same time, energy transformation also brings many opportunities for additional value streams beyond selling kilowatt hours, and these innovative business models are not limited to just mechanisms and technology to ensure system flexibility. They also comprise new services that empower consumers to take more control over their individual consumption and production, turning them into active market participants. Fast-moving utilities, and I'm sure there are many in this room, can now leverage new services for retail consumers and customers through distributed renewable generation, capturing customer relationships while branding and positioning themselves as a utility for the future. For instance, Oklahoma Gas and Electric's smart grid deployment serves as the backbone for the world's largest demand response program, reducing peak demand by 33% in the hot summer months and helping customers earn electricity savings. In our host country, in the Netherlands, the utility Eneco has evolved from a company operating in a centralized electricity system to now supporting customers with distributed generation, storage, and the exchange of this energy via local networks. As market facilitators, utilities can bridge the gap between distributed energy resources like behind-the-meter storage appliances and demand response with system operators and with markets. Siemens and RWE announced, for example, that they would jointly build the IT backbone of a mass-market virtual power plant to coordinate hundreds of megawatts worth of distributed energy projects from wind and solar farms. Furthermore, a number of utilities are launching pilot programs to test battery storage on their networks. Pacific Gas and Electric in California has developed a project with Solar City to understand how storage supports the grid and how to get additional revenues from it. And it's all about how do we look at these new revenue streams in this new, fast-evolving universe. With these rapid developments taking place in power electronics, flexible generation, and big data, Utilities can leverage advances in asset management. CAISO, NREL, and First Solar recently undertook a study that found that a large solar farm equipped with advanced inverters and software controls can meet the ancillary service response usually provided by natural gas-fired peak plants. Having better access to data and forecasting techniques also helps capture variability, reducing the need for backup resources. System operators across Europe are embracing machine learning and big data technologies to build robust prediction models. And I really believe that these developments taken together are transforming the industry faster than any of us ever expected. In the end-use sectors, utilities are embarking on sector coupling. This is particularly relevant for transport sector as more utilities engage in EV services that are transforming our cities. NL is deploying mobile apps for smart charging of EVs, and Energy is running a pilot program with blockchain technology to authenticate and manage the billing processes for autonomous EV charging stations. Here in the Netherlands, grid operators have joined 325 municipalities in the Living Lab for Smart Charging program, which is testing EV smart charging and grid support from mobile batteries. Equally important to these efforts for power utilities is the heating and cooling sector. Electric boilers and district heating and cooling systems now operate with surplus of renewable electricity while balancing power systems. So it's clear that the opportunities abound for utilities in the energy transition. The key question remaining is how best the industry can monetize these potential new value streams, from providing new services to be distributed and renewables-based markets. The shift from selling kilowatt hours to additionally selling services to the customer is unfolding before us. While these revenue streams might be marginal today, the need and value for such services will, in our view, undoubtedly increase as the energy transition accelerates in the coming years. The evolution of power market design, therefore, must ensure sufficient compensation for ancillary services. IRENA's recent report, Adapting Market Design to High Shares of Variable Renewable Energy, finds that price signals need to reflect market conditions and encourage resources to be provided flexibly. This needs to be a joint venture between the utility industry, regulators, and government, as it entails incentives to encourage flexible behavior on the supply side and dynamic rates on the demand side, together with changing regulatory frameworks that reward distribution system operators for their performance as opposed to energy sales. We see important initiatives currently exploring these interactions between distributed, renewable, and wholesale markets, with, for example, New York's Reforming the Energy Vision and California's Distribution Resource Plan. The increasing digitalization of the power system is leading us to a more intelligent, efficient, and low-carbon grid. While numerous startups have already realized the business opportunities in this new paradigm, utilities have largely been late entrants. However, the industry has begun to embrace its critical role and, in many cases, accelerating distributed renewables uptake. In Europe, more than 20 energy firms like EDF, Endesa, Eneco, Engie, Enel, E.ON, Iberdrola, Vattenfall, and RWE are engaged in peer-to-peer energy trading platforms based on blockchain technology. This type of leadership by the utility industry to transform grids is critical if we are to achieve an energy transition that is affordable, reaches all consumers, and exploits our vast renewables potential. Continued innovation in renewable energy technology, policy, regulation, and finance in the coming years will be essential to accelerate the global energy transition. In turn, this can help bring about rapid and deep decarbonization and sustained economic growth. This was precisely the focus of the first IRENA Innovation Week that took place last year, which we will be holding again next year, and hope that we can continue this discussion to share best practices at a global level in order to support the energy transition worldwide. No one can predict precisely how the energy system of the future will look and operate, but the imperative of change is clear. The efforts to continuously decarbonize and modernize our grids will be immense, and renewables will be central to our success in the future. I also want to speak a little bit in the European setting where we find ourselves about what is happening globally. For the last 3 years in a row, we saw that the majority of capacity additions in renewables worldwide actually took place in developing and emerging markets. That is where energy demand is now growing at a record pace. And I think as we move forward, it's imperative that the learning processes that we are going through, and Europe is often at the forefront of this and actually has taken a lot of the burden of the cost of innovation and change, but these learning processes need to become global if we are really to create an energy system of the future that can support us all with the kind of challenges that we face as a human community. The efforts to change our systems for the future are dependent very much on what many of you in this room will be doing in the future. So as an international organization that is a public institution that is dedicated to supporting this transition, we'll very much be looking to you, to your experiences, to the vision that you will be bringing to the table, to the energy that you demonstrate in this change. And we will be working with you to make this a global momentum for prosperity and sustainability for us in the future. So thank you very much once again for the very kind invitation to be here. It looks like a very thrilling program over the next week. And we have a number of speakers now who will address the conference. I want to start by introducing Manon Jansen, a really innovative, forward-looking thinker, somebody who is really committed to the energy transition here in the Netherlands. Manon is chair of Top Sector Energy and currently CEO of Ecoris, which is a very innovative consultancy looking at economic and social change and energy in the future. So Manon, welcome, and good to have you here. Please, thank you.